Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Liz and this is Let's Get Lizical, where we do everything card making. And today we're going to be doing a tunnel card, but I wanted to make it on the front of the card instead of the inside of the card so that the recipient could still display it like a normal card. Like when you do the layers on the inside, you don't really get to see it if it's displayed. Like you'll still see the front of the card. You might see a portion of it, but you don't see it to its fullest extent. And I did some looking around on Pinterest, and I did see a few of these, but not as many as the ones on the inside. So this is probably like the more rare way to do it. But again, cards are meant to be displayed, to me anyway. Like when I get cards from anybody, like they go on a shelf for a little bit and then they end up in my like keep box, but I do like to display them for a bit regardless. So I think that goes for most people. So it's nice to see like the beauty of the card on the outside as opposed to the inside, especially when it's being displayed. You could also do this by adding foam tape between layers instead of building the actual shadow box. It just adds a little bit more dimension to your card that you can't fold down, but it's just another way to do it, and I'll probably do that in a future video. But this is the method that I would use if you want your card to fold flat and be able to put it through the mail without having to bubble mailer it or whatever. So yeah, so we're gonna build like a shadow box on the outside and then attach it to a normal card base, but we are cutting the card base down a bit just because this is a shadow box, so you kind of want it to fold flat, so you need to take off a little bit of the width of the card. I did my measurements a little incorrectly for this, but at the same time it's not terrible. Like when it lays flat it actually measures 4 by 5.5 instead of 4 1/4 by 5.5. So you could adjust the sides a little bit. I made my card 3.5 inches wide, finished, I guess, like when it's popped out, and that's correct, but then I did my sides as 1/2 inch, so when it folds down to 4 inches. You could make the sides 3/4 inch instead, which is kind of what I had intended, but I did my math wrong and just ended up with this. The bottom layer of the like telescope is kind of like what I'm doing with the smallest circle. I had also planned on kind of like popping up from the base, but I end up gluing it down flat because I didn't leave enough space for that on the sides. So if you want it to be a little bit more dimensional, then I would do your sides to 3/4 inch instead of half. And then when you do your inserts, you'll do the flaps on the sides, 1/2 inch for both the inserts, whereas this one I cut 1/4 inch flaps for the middle insert, and then on the bottom one I cut the flaps off completely because I realized, again, I did my math wrong. If you do the sides 3/4 inch, you'll have enough space to pop it up, as long as you're leaving that 1/4 inch. And I would also recommend, you see I'm scoring it after I added the circle. I should have scored it before I added the circle just so I know how much space I had to play around. I kind of did the guessing game with that and just got lucky. There's like about 1/4 inch space between the cutout circle and the edge. It's also not 100% centered, which is a little weird, because for mine nesting dies, they came connected, so I use those connection points as kind of like a center point, but I guess they're not 100% centered on the dies, so it's probably not the best way to do it. You can use a measuring tape or ruler or whatever if you want it to be a little bit more precise, but it doesn't bother me. It's not that far off. So anyway, for the top panel, if you want to follow along with this card exactly, is cut to 5.5 by 5.5 inch squared, and then I scored at 1/2 inch and 1 inch from each side, and that kind of creates the box. We will be gluing the back panel onto this to like close out that box, but we'll do that a little bit later. The next insert in is 4 by 5.5, and then I cut a slightly smaller circle into that and scored at 1/4 inch from each side. And then this bottom panel here, I cut to 3.5 by 5.5. And I think I even like shaved off a like very tiny bit off each side, just because we will be putting this into the front panel flaps that I did, like the first fold. You'll see in a bit how to assemble it. But again, if you want to do this a little bit differently, then you would cut it to 6 by 5.5, and then you would score at 1/2 inch, 1 1/4 inch from each side. So that'll give you your 3/4 inch flap. And then on the inside, you would cut it to 4 by 5.5, and then score at 1/4 inch from each side, and then do that twice. And then that way you would have a little bit more dimension on the inside. Again, I'm not hating the way this turned out. I kind of like it, actually. And it's not too deep. I think 3/4 inch gets a little bit too deep for me, unless you're doing like a proper shadow box. But I'll add all of the measurements in the description box below for both options if you wanted to make it a little bit deeper or make it this way. But yeah, anyway, for the front panel, I did the same technique as I did last week, where we clear embossed on top of some cardstock just to give it a little bit of texture. I'm using the Hero Arts, I think it's called Antique Map background stamp. Again, will be linked in the description down below. I love this stamp set for any like nautical themed card. It's just like a great like vintage map look. I've used it many times, also along with this MFT stamp set, which is unfortunately no longer available, but I will try to link something similar in the description below. There actually aren't too many like similar stamp sets out there, like pirate themed ones, which is kind of funny. There's a lot of like characters where like they're dressed as pirates for Halloween, or they're just like different critters, which is fine, I guess. But nothing like this one. I really like the Birdie Brown designs that MFT used to have, and I miss them. But maybe I can think about doing a pirate set in the future for my own brand and fill in that gap. But for now, I'm just coloring a bit of background. So I wanted the story of this to be the girl pirate on the image has like a telescope. So the shadow box kind of like acts as the, like she's looking through the telescope and she's seeing this treasure chest on a distant island or something. So I used the back panel with the smallest circle in to trace out what area I needed to draw in. And I stamped out the image with the coins and the treasure chest, and then I just kind of added a bit of background to it. So I added like some sand dunes, and that could either be sky or water. It's kind of like up for interpretation. I just colored it blue, and I am just going to be gluing it straight on this panel here. I'm going to tape it in place first, just so that it stays there, and then I'm going to flip it back and then add some glue to it just so it's a little bit more secure. I do trim it here a little bit just because it's not needed. And then, yeah, so I glue it down, and then that's what she's looking at through her telescope. Okay, so here comes the assembly part. We're gonna add in the insert panel, and I'm just kind of butting it up to that first score line from the edge on the one side, and then I will fold it over and do it again on the opposite side. And when I folded it over, it kind of overlapped the score line a little bit, so I'm going to trim a sliver of it off just so that it doesn't mess with the folding on it. And you can do that at any point in time before you score even, and just kind of like make it just very slightly smaller just so it fits inside a little bit better. And then I'm going to glue in the back panel. I do it a little bit wrong here though, because I kind of butt it up to the insert instead of doing it to the score line as well. So you want to butt it up to the inside of the score line and right beside on the opposite flap, if that makes sense. So you're still butting it up to that first score line, but you're doing it from the opposite side, I guess. And then you're gonna fold it over and then do the same on the other side, just kind of like fold that flap down and then glue it all together, and then you have your little shadow box. And I'm gonna fold it back and forth like a bunch of times just because it helps reinforce those folds. And then naturally one of the sides will fold a little bit nicer, and I think it's generally the side where you glue them down on. Not always, but like generally that's the first one you line up is the better one. So just like fold it back and forth, reinforce those, get the paper trained to where it should be. You might have to force it a little bit, but just use your bone folder, and as long as it's not like a major difference, like as long as you don't mess it up too bad, then it should fold fine. And then again, just use your bone folder and reinforce all of those folds, and then you'll have like a nicely folding shadow box on the front of your card base. I also cut the card base down again from the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I trimmed it down to 3 1/2 because that's the size of the card I was working on. So anyway, we're gonna go back to coloring. I kind of like switch back and forth between this because I like to assemble my card and then kind of like decorate it after. So we did the coloring for the background plus assembled the card. Now we are going to color the image that's going to go on the outside of the card. And this is the little girl looking through her telescope. Normally I color her the same way almost every time. I don't know why, it's just my go-to. It's like red bandana and sash. I usually give her like brown hair and like a burlap sack looking bag for like a dress because it's all tattered and whatnot, but I didn't want it to blend in with the background image. I didn't want it to be the same as the way I always color it. So I do change it up a bit. I made her a redhead this time. I still did the red bandana and sash just because I think it always looks good and it just coordinates well with the colors on the card. And then for her dress, I'm gonna make it black and white stripes, which is kind of like, you know, like our standard pirate costume kind of thing. So maybe this is like a little girl playing pirate and she's looking through her telescope, which could, you know, in her imagination be like her toilet paper roll or something, you know, and she's looking at the buried treasure that's just a little too far away and she needs to get to it somehow. I don't know. Anyway, so she's gonna have a striped dress and gray leggings, black boots, and the telescopes I usually color brown with like a gold ring around the end. But for now, I'll just let you guys watch me color, and I'm gonna take a break from talking. Okay, so now that that's all done, we're gonna restamp this girl and then I'm gonna go cut her out on my scan and cut because I do not have the coordinating dies for this. And I'm also going to work on a sentiment that says you are a treasure, and I'm gonna heat emboss that in white on black before putting it on the card. And I'm gonna play around with the layout a little bit. I end up putting everything on the right hand side just because it felt more natural. It gave the girl somewhere to stand as well. It kind of grounded her. Otherwise she would just kind of be floating in the card. I wanted her to overlap the cutouts a little bit just so it looked more like she was looking through her telescope. But yeah, so right now I'm just working on the sentiment and I'm just cutting it out with my guillotine trimmer. And I'm just going to cut it square. I wish I cut it on a little bit of an angle there where like the sentiment starts. Normally I would do either this or I cut it on, again, like a little bit of an angle. So I would go probably from the top of the Y down towards the left, just to give it a, I don't like to do banner tails, but I like to do like just like a little like diagonal cut just because it makes it look a little bit nicer, a little bit less boxy. But anyway, that's probably the only thing I would change about this card. I absolutely love how this turned out. It was pretty much what I was envisioning when I planned this out months ago, and it's kind of funny because we're actually doing like a pirate ship tour around the bay this week for work, a social event. So it's just like coincidence that it happened to be the same week as this video. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this card and give it a try. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below and let me know what your thoughts are. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so because I'd love to have you here. And until next time, thanks guys. Bye.